Grizzly Tales for Gruesome Kids, The Naughty Gnomes of No by Jamie Ricks. Today's story is The Dragon Moth. Even before Josiah Ricks was born, his parents knew he was going to be trouble. They were having a barbecue in the garden when Mr. Ricks pointed up at the sky. "Are those clouds trying to tell us something?" he said. Mrs. Ricks shielded her eyes from the sun and gasped. They're spelling out a sentence," she replied. "It says, 'Oi you, yes you with the babby in your tummy, give this child away to a travelling circus. He is trouble.'" "Clouds are not very good spellers, are they?" said Mr. Ricks, rather missing the point. I could spell better than that." This gave him an idea, and the following day he started a new career as a sign writer. Anyway, the point was that Mr. and Mrs. Ricks should have heeded the warning sign in the sky, but didn't, and because it led directly to Mr. Ricks becoming a sign writer, which in turn led to Josiah becoming a rebel. They had only themselves to blame. At least that's what Josiah wanted them to think. Putting the blame for his own disobedience onto his parents kept them just where he wanted them, under his thumb. Every day at breakfast, he was required to eat his toast. He knew this was because there was a sign on the table saying, "Eat your toast." So every morning he devised a different way to defy the sign. He tossed the toast into the washing up bowl, or crumbled it onto the floor for the mice, or shoved 3 pieces into his mouth at once and chewed with his mouth open. "That's disgusting," squealed Mrs. Ricks. "Shall I spit it out then?" sniggered the cunning boy, who knew she'd say that. "No!" she wailed. "Why can't you just do as you're told?" "It's not my fault," he mumbled, splattering his parents with crusty spit. "I live in a house surrounded by signs. I can't breathe for instructions." "Brush your teeth, don't run on the stairs, switch the light off. Is it any wonder that occasionally I need to spread my wings and fly against the wind?" They're only harmless signs," said his father. "I used to read them to you instead of bedtime stories. You can't tell me bedtime stories are bad for you. That's the problem," shouted Josiah. Most are read Enid Blyton or Roald Dahl, but I get Take Care, Slippery Pavement and Danger, Men at Work. By now his mouth was crammed with so much toast that the brown bulge between his lips looked like the backside of a bear reversing out of a small cave. "If you didn't put ideas in my head with your stupid signs, I'd be a good boy. I would." "But the whole point of my sign," said Mr. Ricks, exclaimed, picking up the one he had only recently finished for the chimpanzee cage at London Zoo. Please do not laugh at the chimps when they spit out their food. It only encourages them. Is to tell people what they shouldn't be doing." "Oh, is that right?" smirked Josiah, spitting bits of toast all over the table. They always make me do the opposite. In which case, I'd write a sign saying, "Do not put your head in the mincing machine." Ha ha ha. The truth was, it wasn't his father's signs that made him do the opposite. Josiah was contrary from birth. Less than an hour after he was born, he had already disobeyed the signs in the hospital corridor. Instead of being quiet, he screamed so loudly that the nurses told his mother to take him home. The fact that he stopped screaming the second he left the building should have told his parents that he was playing them for fools, but it didn't. And so it went on. The day he learned to walk, he walked to the park, walked across the grass, and stole all of the "do not walk on the grass" signs. On his first day at nursery school, he took one look at the sign on the back of the loo door, "Now wash your hands," and washed his feet instead. And the first time he was confronted by the sign in the newsagent's window that said, "Only 2 school children at a time," he phoned up every child at school and invited them into the shop for a "help yourself to as many sweets as you can stuff down your trousers" party. As a rule, the children who lived in this Cornish seaside village were well behaved. This was because of the cliffs overlooking the end of the world, and the local teacher, old Nudger Nicholson, having a special liking for pushing pupils off it. He taught me. So, being badly behaved, Josiah stuck out like a sore thumb. His disobedience started off harmlessly enough when he discovered that if he ran into the playground through the gate marked "girls," he got the same reaction every time. "Get out! Get out! Get out!" screeched the girls. "You're not a girl, Josiah. You're the owner of a dangly prawn, and you make our lovely entrance gate smell like a dustbin." But as he grew older, small transgressions became bigger and bigger and more dangerous. Getting his finger stuck up his nose after opening a tube of super glue, clearly labelled, "Do not pick your nose after handling glue." Getting trapped in the fridge after ignoring the magnetic sign on the door, "Do not even think of hiding in this fridge." His parents despaired and begged him to stop disobeying signs. "Why should I?" he sniffed defiantly. "I disobey signs and I never get punished. The reason signs are so boring is because they're always trying to protect us from things and never happen." "That's not true," said his father, hurt by his son's low opinion of his profession. "Signs contain wisdom passed down from generation to generation." "You mean like hot dogs sold here?" sneered Josiah. "Very wise." "Don't be so horrid to your father," snapped Mrs. Ricks. "Signs are there to keep us safe. Ignore them at your peril." "Okay," said Josiah, with a mischievous glint in his eye. "If signs are there to protect me, that means dragons must exist." The mention of dragons came out of the blue and struck Mr. and Mrs. Ricks like a double blow from a scythe. His mother laughed brittly in a failed attempt to convince her son that nothing was wrong. "What are you talking about?" she trilled. Josiah would see that he had their attention. "Well, at school today," he exclaimed, "old Nudger Nicholson said that there's a sign on the lighthouse door that says, 'Here be dragons.'" His parents' eyebrows flickered. "That's one sign I'd like to see." "Never," growled his father. "That is one sign you'll never see." So you are scared that there might be dragons up there then? It was a subject Josiah's father did not wish to discuss, so he kept his answer brief. A child went missing a few years ago, then another last year. They both had gone to the lighthouse. They trawled the seas for the bodies, but found nothing. To this day, nobody knows what became of them. Stop it, interrupted Mrs. Ricks. You're scaring him. Dragons don't exist, Josiah. The reason we don't want you going up there is because the lighthouse isn't safe. Something might fall on your head. I don't believe you, said Josiah. You don't have to, growled his father. You just have to do as you're told. But of course Josiah never did what he was told, and being told not to go to the lighthouse simply fueled his desire to get there. Later that night, Mr. and Mrs. Ricks tucked their son up in bed. Mr. Ricks placed a freshly painted sign on the end of Josiah's bed. Do not go to the lighthouse. To remind you in the morning, he explained. Then they kissed their son on the forehead and left. As Josiah sat up, a moth flew through the open window, fluttered up to the light bulb, and cast a giant shadow across the wall. Right, said the boy, tossing back his duvet to reveal that he was already dressed. To the lighthouse! Then he swung his legs out of bed, climbed out of the window, and slid silently down the drain pipe. There was only one way to find the end of the world in the dark. Slipping through a hole in the fence, past 3 explicit warning signs: no trespassing, electricity kills, and danger trains. Josiah slid down the embankment and ran in a straight line, following the glint of the moon on the railway tracks. Half a mile further on, as the track disappeared into a tunnel, Josiah climbed up the bank towards the sound of the sea. He ducked under some barbed wire and ran across a field prepared with mossy boulders, in a far corner of which was the deserted lighthouse, glowing white in the darkness like a boiled bone. The lighthouse was surrounded by a broken picket fence. Josiah pushed through the gate, ignoring a sign that said, no entry, private property. Now that he was closer to the building, he could see that somebody had covered the walls in graffiti. Hundreds of messages blocked out it in red paint. Keep out! Come no closer! Go home! Stay away! If you know what's good for you! And Josiah's favourite, because it had been written in 10-foot-high letters and had the exclamation mark, Begone! What made these signs strange, though, apart from the quantity of them, was each warning was followed by the most terrifying word of all, Josiah. Of course, any normal person would have taken the hint and rushed home before whatever it was inside the lighthouse that wanted to protect its privacy came out and defended it. But Josiah wasn't normal. He was a naughty gnome of no. Twice he circled the building looking for a way in, but couldn't find a door. Then all of a sudden, above his head, a loose shutter clattered into the brickwork. He glanced up, spray stinging his cheeks, and there he saw it, 6 feet off the ground, cut into the side of the lighthouse like a buttonhole. The door, and hanging from a nail hammered into the wood, the sign, Here be dragons. Suddenly, there was a noise from inside the lighthouse, a throbbing din of rotor blades, as if a helicopter had started up. At the same time, Josiah heard a crackle of electricity and the thump of a gas flame being lit. Then the light at the top of the lighthouse came on. It beam pierced the darkness like a white stiletto and flashed off the tips of the waves below. Josiah's feet had frozen to the ground. What in the name of the devil was that huge shadow stretched across the sea? As it arched its long neck and flapped its gargantuan wings, Josiah knew the answer. It was the beast awake in its lair. Now, maybe for once, he would heed the warning signs, do as he was told, and be gone. But even as Josiah made his decision to flee, the door cracked open and swung back against the wall. The boy's fearful eyes were drawn towards the opening, waiting for the dragon's scaly face to appear, with its child-chomping teeth and fireball-snouting nostrils. Instead, a moth flew out. Josiah laughed with relief. "A moth," he roared. "A little itty-bitty moth. What a cast-iron fool I am. That big flapping shadow on the sea wasn't a dragon at all. It was a moth fluttering in the front of the lighthouse's powerful lamp." Now that his fear had vanished, it amused him. He took his eyes off the opening door. "I know what you are," he shouted at the warning sign scribbled on the lighthouse walls. "You've been put up there by smugglers to scare people away. There got to be stolen gold and whiskey hidden in this lighthouse. What better way to keep people from snooping around than by telling them that there's a dragon living here?" Now that there was nothing to be scared of anymore, and the prospect of finding gold inside, Josiah turned his attention back to the door and the problem of how he was going to get up in it. He was, however, no longer alone. Standing on the threshold was a bearded old man wearing a brown and green leather patchwork suit, which made him look like a snake. On his head he wore a miner's hat with a light on the front, and over his shoulders a fiery red cape. "Josiah Reeks! Josiah Reeks!" he whispered in a soft voice that caught the wind and travelled directly into the boy's ear. "I am the Dragon Master. The dragon performs at my will. Begone, young warrior, and I shall keep the beast at bay." Josiah was not falling for any of this theatre. "I know what you are up to," he said. "You're the smuggler trying to get rid of me so you can stash some more booty." The Dragon Master carried on as if Josiah hadn't spoken. "When the dragon is hungry, I can hold it no longer. Leave now, obey my signs, and you will be spared." Josiah sat down at the old man's, and as the old man placed another sign on the door under "Here be dragons," it now read, "And here be death too." "I'm not going," said the boy haughtily, "until I've had a look inside." The Dragon Master did not reply. He turned back through the open door and brought out a wooden ladder, which he leant against the door and step before climbing down and joining Josiah on the ground. Up close, Josiah could see that the old man's face was a bag of wrinkles. He pressed a finger to his lips to indicate that Josiah should stop talking, then took out a notepad and pencil and wrote down a message. "Keep your voice down. It can hear you." Then he added in a secret whisper, "All right, you win. I'm not really the Dragon Master. I'm the Dragon Slave, empowered to find it food whenever it wakes." "I don't believe you," said the boy. "Quiet," urged the old man. "You woke it when you came through the gate and brushed past the no entry sign. It smelled your blood, and now it's angry and wants to sup you up. Quick, go home! Save your skin!" But the belligerent boy, who never did as he was told, pushed past the old man and strode to the foot of the ladder. "Dragon," he said, if you really exist, come out and face me." He looked back at the old man, who had swapped his look of concern for a broad smile. "I did try to warn you," he said, "but you wouldn't listen. Just as I predicted." "Predicted?" said Josiah. "What do you mean?" "Like I said, you silly boy, I am the dragon slave empowered to deliver him food. That is why I painted all those signs on the lighthouse. To catch bad children like you, Josiah. To lure you to the lighthouse as food for my master." "You mean the dragon really exists?" "Not a dragon, no, but a dragon moth, a colossus of a bug, nurtured these last 10 years by the brilliant lamp of the lighthouse, grown big and strong by the warmth of the giant bulb." Josiah blinked. "Are you saying that you only told me to flee because you knew I would stay?" "Bullseye!" cackled the old man. "You gnomes of no are all the same. Always do the opposite to what you're asked. And now that you are still here, and not at home where you should be, dinner can begin." As he spoke, the dragon moth emerged from the lighthouse. It was 10 meters long, with antennae like bullwhips and wings that unfurled like the sails of a merchant ship, and smugglers would wrecked on the rocks as the Leviathan lumbered into the sky. Josiah suddenly wished that he had paid heed to the painted sign warning him of danger, but it was too late. For that, the downdraught from the beast's beating wings bore down on his back as he took to his heels and ran back across the field, dodging from boulder to boulder as the giant moth thrummed overhead. With one lunge, it grabbed Josiah by the neck and of his shirt and lifted him into the air. The boy struggled, but there was no breaking. The insect's grip, it carried him off to the end of the world and dropped him onto the rocks, where his skull split in two like a clamshell and spilled his delicious brain into the foaming Red Sea. If only the sign had said, "Stay here and get eaten by Dragon Moth," Josiah Ricks would still be alive today. But then the Dragon Moth would still have been hungry and still have needed feeding. It still does. In fact, twice a year. Who knows? Maybe its next supper is you. Is the dragon's next supper you? An exciting quiz. Question 1. Read this sign and we'll find out. Go on. Do not read this sign. Yes. Go take a bath in garlic butter. Now, I expect you're wondering how Josiah came to the Hotel Darkness when a giant moth had gobbled him up. Simple really. Even moths have got to go, and this one went over the sea, so he floated down to me as a lump of pongy guano. I keep him on the cheese board in my office to remind me of the cheese which I love and what I can't get for love nor money. Have you... Anyway. And that's the end of that. The end.
You've been recording, will I?